to Healing Forward. I'm Barbara La Pointe. This is a space where we have real conversations about our human experience, the kind of talks that challenge us, change us, and deepen us. Today's guest is someone whose story brings us face to face with a reality many people have opinions about, but very few people actually understand. Jonathan Celis is joining us from Tijuana, Mexico, and that's where he lives. But he's lived in the United States for over 2 decades and recently experienced an immigration, detention, and deportation firsthand. But what makes this young man's voice so important is not just what he went through, it's what he's choosing to do with it now. And that's why he's here. And Jonathan, big thank you for joining us today on Healing Forward.
Thank you so much for giving me the space, the opportunity. I mean, we talked a little bit before this, but I said that I found one of your posts, and I thought that this could be a good way to tell my story, good way to get others to listen a little bit, to see the human side. And I think this is a good conversation to have. And maybe people are scared to have that conversation; they're uncomfortable having this conversation, but as somebody that went through all of this and actually lived it, it's very important. And that was kind of my mission while in detention. It was to never forget about it and always just speak up on it for many people that choose not to speak on it afterwards. They might be scared, they might just not know what to do with that or how to process it. And so I wanted to give that a platform today.
This is exciting because I think we really did align, Jonathan, very nicely on bringing a human lens to it, because we live in such a charged political world, but this is a space that you and I have created together with an intention to bring forward empathy and really share your story. I'm going to be asking you, Jonathan, to take us through firsthand the details of everything that you went through. And I'd love to start with that. I'd love for you to paint a picture exactly what happened to you. But first, I want you to tell us, what was your life like in the United States? What was it like, your life before that shift happened, before change came to your door, before everything changed?
I mean, I had a pretty normal life. I mean, I still live with my parents in our family home. I live with my sister, my nephews. We have some property in Texas. It's about 7 acres. So my dad was able to build a life for us and give us a good life. I mean, we came to the U.S. in 2002. And so he worked really hard to make sure we had an education. I was able to get a bachelor's degree. I was able to work since the age of 16. So I had a pretty normal life. I've been on DACA for as long as I can remember, ever since it came out. Honestly, I think it was during the first Obama term that it first happened. So DACA just gives people like me an opportunity to work legally, file taxes, and just live somewhat of a normal life in the United States without having a legal status. And so I was just living a normal life, working. I would hang out with my friends, go out to eat with my mom. I mean, just regular things. I lived in Los Angeles for a few years, and that's where I did my schooling. And then I went back to Texas during the pandemic, and then that's kind of where I decided to stay. I focus on production, on media production, social media, and all that stuff. So I'm very familiar with how everything works, and that's kind of my life. I was hosting a podcast with my best friend. I mean, like I said, it was a normal life before everything happened.
Very interesting. All right. And so you were born in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you immigrated, or you went to the United States to live. You had this life.
Mm-hmm.
You're living in Texas with your family. Do you speak Spanish?
Yeah, I speak Spanish fluently. I mean, that's one of the things my parents always really make sure we stayed with, because I mean, it's really valuable, especially now. And so it's always been with me. But I also speak English very well, just because I was brought in at the age of 8. So I didn't have a choice at that time, obviously. But yeah, I speak English and Spanish very well.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And so you came to the United States when you were 8. You always had this sort of buffer of DACA
Mhm.
around you. And then something changed. So take us now, Jonathan, to the moment where everything changed for you. And really, I want you to get into like
Mhm.
exactly what happened so that I can feel it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it didn't happen. You know, the shift didn't happen whenever I got arrested. But prior to that, in 2024, I had a misdemeanor on my record, unfortunately, and it's something that I'm always gonna be taking accountability for. You know, it's a mistake I made, and it's one thing that I think people choose to focus on a lot, but I try not to. I mean, I know it was a big deal. So I had a DUI that I was trying to correct, and I was on probation, so I was just trying to follow the rules after that, just trying to go to my appointments. And like I said, people usually try to focus on that, even though, and I don't think it should erase 23 years of my life, obviously. But I think I was struggling a lot with my mental health. And so after all that, I ended up going to therapy, and I was in therapy for about a year before I got arrested by ICE. And so I was really learning. It wasn't just that I decided one day, I'm going to drink and drive. It wasn't about that. I think it had a lot to do more with just a lot of stuff that was happening in my life, family stuff, family member stuff, my friends, just a lot of stuff going on. And I think it really affected me mentally. And after that, I was just attending my regular probation appointments. I went to a few appointments, and then that's when showed up to my probation appointment. And all they said was, laws are changing, and you need to go see an immigration judge, and that was it. And so they didn't say much. They didn't really. They asked me a few questions, but I thought it was just somebody from the probation office. Like I thought it was just some random people just because they had no badges. They just regular clothing. Like it didn't make any sense at the time. But then until they started saying laws are changing, that's when I realized I was getting detained by ICE.
In that moment, you realized you were being detained by ICE?
Yeah, I they don't tell you. I mean, as soon as I went to my probation appointment, I just checked in, made my payments. When I went in there, they were like, "Hey, can you come into this room?" And I went in there. They started asking me, "Hey, why are you here?" Like asking about my probation and why I was there. And then it still wasn't hitting me. Like it still wasn't telling me why I was talking to these guys. And then once they said laws are changing, I immediately knew that as it was I was getting arrested by ICE. And at that point, I just thought it was gonna be for like, oh, maybe a few hours. Maybe it's something that I'm just gonna be able to go and just get situated and then go home. But it was definitely not like that.
So when yeah, this is very interesting. Like when was the moment where you realized this was not going to be like that, and it was going to be a little bit serious and a little bit longer than a couple of hours?
But yeah, I mean, I had the hope while I was there, like while I was getting arrested by them, I had the hope that it would be, maybe just a few hours. But then they took me to Dallas, and that's where they booked me because I'm from pretty much North Dallas, and so they took me to a station there. Now there, it's like a holding cell, so it's only there just to book you and process you, and then they decide where they're gonna send you to another detention center. Really, so I got to the holding center, and the only thing that I was able to do was just get a couple of phone numbers, and then they were gonna process me, and that was it. Then they put you in a holding cell with a bunch of other men, really, that are coming in and out. And that day, I remember so many people came in and out. The people that signed deportations right away, they were getting booked faster, and they were getting taken out faster. They told me that day I was gonna be leaving, but I ended up staying 3 days there, and I think that's when I knew that it was like this is just not gonna end anytime soon. This is gonna be a big process, long process. Um, and then
Now,
those attempts, yeah.
Jonathan, I'm from Canada. I live in Puerto Vallarta. And I watch the news like any other person, but you lived in the States and you were like and you're Mexican and you're under DACA, but you're still a young guy and you're like living your life. Was
Yeah.
this all like in your consciousness? Like, were you really aware, like before it happened, were you nervous about it? Were you scared? Were you thinking, oh, this could happen to me? Or was it just sort of out there
I
in?
think it never really hit until this time around with this president now. I think this is when it actually the fear kind of kicked in more. And then obviously when I got arrested in 2024 for my misdemeanor, I think that's also when it hit, there's a possibility. And that was one of the things I would discuss frequently with my therapist. It's like this is a big fear of mine. This is a fear that I have now that it's one of the most, it's just one of the most important fears right now at the moment. It's the one that's keeping me up at night is that anytime, because I am dealing with the court and I'm dealing with Texas. And so it's just, I knew that this could be a possibility. And we discussed it many times with my therapist. And even that, I don't think it prepared me I don't think that prepared me for what was going to happen, but it definitely helped me. The therapy just definitely helped me inside while I was navigating this whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting the way you got to go to therapy
Yeah.
beforehand. It was almost like a little gift that was preparing you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so thankful that I had that opportunity. And, whenever I had got a DUI, like that was just, like I said, it is a big mistake. It's not something just to take lightly. It is a big problem. And I just think it's not an excuse at all for all this. But I also think there's more to it than just the misdemeanor or the things on your record. I think there's a lot that goes through it. And like I said, for me, it was better to just choose therapy afterwards, focus on myself, focus on getting better, and just kind of figuring out what actually happened and why it got to that point.
Yeah, I think I really like that about you, your willingness to go inside, your willingness to take
Yeah.
accountability. We all make mistakes. You were moving forward. In that moment when you were detained and you had to stay there for 3 days, well, like, were you able to call your family, or what was that experience like? Was it cordial? Was it polite? Was it rough? Did you get to have lunch?
Yeah.
Were Texas donuts served? Like, really, what happened?
That place honestly was those 3 days were the worst out of everything. Those were the worst 3 days because you're in there. First of all, we're just crowded in a little room. There was a day that there was so many guys in there that I had to sleep with like my legs against the wall or against the door because everyone was just crowded around. And people come in and out. They take you out in and out, and sometimes they move you around with other people. They'll put you back, and it's just a lot. And people come in. It's cold. There's a bathroom in there, so every time you need to use the bathroom, you just have to cover yourself with like a piece of foil that you use for later on to cover yourself at night if you're cold. So they don't give you blankets. You could just be on the floor laying down. They don't give you any clothes. It's just what you bring in, and that's it. So a lot of people came in with like just dirty clothes from work because a lot of people were arrested either going to work or coming back from work. So some people were in shorts and pajamas. Like it was just whatever you had at the time of the arrest. That's how you go in. Obviously, they take all your belongings, and inside there is a payphone, but it was very complicated to get through, and especially for somebody, I could see it for somebody that doesn't speak English and just needs help. It's like it was very complicated for a lot of them. So I was able to help a lot of people with that, and I realized that the phone calls were $50 each. I didn't realize that first, but
$50?
$50 a call, yeah.
Holy.
And
Well,
I didn't realize it until I had already called my sister multiple times, and she was just like, I obviously want you to call us at any time you need, but they are 50, so just try to make sure that it's whenever you really need something. And so I was able to, in one of the calls, I was able to connect some people because some of them didn't have the money, didn't know how to get the funds, how to activate the calls. Like it was just very, very complicated. So I just had my sister three-way call other people. Like I had a line of people that wanted to just call their family members and let them know that they were inside. So my sister was very, very helpful in that. And obviously she helped paying for, the calls. And so It was not the best, and then the food was just not good at all. It was cold, dusty sometimes. Sometimes it would have hairs. It was just not food that you would really want to eat at all. So sometimes you
And
just I think I just ate bread, pieces of bread, and water, maybe some cookies, and that's it. Like that's all I was really eating because none of it was really just appetizing. And then in that moment, you're really not even hungry. Honestly, you just so much is going through your head that it's not the food is just like the last thing in your mind.
yeah. So in that room, in those conditions, those deplorable conditions, it was all men.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
all men, all ages. I saw people from 18 years old up to like I think one man came in like 75 years old. Like, and he just came in at night, and he had to figure out how to sleep. He was walking with a cane. Like, it was just horrible.
That is really deplorable.
Hmm.
I mean, that's worse than I even thought. And I don't think about these things. So I'm seeing this in my mind's eye. How did you regulate yourself? Like, how did you actually be calm enough to support others around you, which is quite remarkable, Jonathan?
I think those 3 days were the hardest though, because I was just an emotional wreck that day. Those 3 days, like those were the worst, the hardest. I was able to speak to my therapist. Actually, I got a call with my therapist in there, and I think he helped out a little bit, and he just kind of was talking me through this. And this is also something that like I said, we've discussed before. So in a way, it kind of, I don't know, it kind of maybe prepared me a little bit. I'm not sure, but he was able to guide me through this whole thing, and just talking to my family a lot, talking to the people inside, because we're all in the same boat. Like at that point, it's we're all in the same boat, so we're all kind of just dealing with the same thing and just getting to know each other. I think we all leaned on each other, and at that point I don't know, I always saw it as maybe I'm meant to be here for a reason. It's happened for a reason, and I think that's what pushed me through everything and really being able to help out more people.
So you're in that room, you're supporting others, you're going through your own experience as well. And then I want to just like fast forward and then we'll do the pieces. Like how long were you in detention in total?
I was transferred to the other one, which was in Eden, Texas, or Eden Detention Center. So I was transferred 3 days later. So August 24th is when I got transferred, and then I stayed there all the way to December 19th. So I
Okay,
was there about 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah, 4 months in detention, and then for when they transfer me, it's a whole different kind of jail. It was a federal jail, but they have ICE dorms, so they are spaces rented out just for the ICE people, and so it's about 140, 150 people in a dorm. So it is a big dorm, but the conditions were way different than what I experienced in the other jail.
Well, I want to get into that with you, Jonathan. And I just want to say to our audience, if Jonathan's story is resonating with you, smash the subscribe button and leave us some comments, because I'm going to be asking Jonathan to monitor the feed, and I will be too. We can have some engagement on the comments
Yeah,
there
of course.
together. Jonathan, I know you shared with me a Reddit post that you made. I actually don't follow Reddit, but I went in and I looked at it, and the engagement was really high. Like, so tell me about that.
So I did that Reddit Q&A pretty much maybe about a month ago, and I'm not really on Reddit. Also, it's not something I'm very familiar with even, but I had seen that there was a section where all you could do is just post a comment or post a story, and then people ask you questions, and that's literally what it was. And I think I was overwhelmed with the amount of responses it got. It got a lot of attraction. It got I got a lot of good comments, but I also got a lot of bad ones. And I think a lot of the bad ones were, yeah, they still stand out. I mean, I try to ignore it, but it definitely, they make you question some things and make you think about some things. But I mean, it was very overwhelming when I did that, and I was not expecting the response from people. I was not expecting really all that attention on it, and I mean, it turned out to be that it was something people are very, very curious about. People don't know much about the subject. So I think I saw how much misinformation is out there. I saw how much people just aren't familiar with it. And I saw that people do care to learn more. And I saw that there's just ignorant people as well. So it's just people that choose to not listen or not hear, or just choose not to even give it any like a listen and see what maybe if I can change their mind, that would be a good thing. But there was a lot of close-minded people on there as well.
I bet it is kind of an explosive subject that
Hmm.
triggers people. And that's why I think it's so neat that we can have this neutral space where we can just kind of explore it without, triggering people.
Yeah.
But if you are triggered by it, maybe just, I would suggest turn inside and ask yourself, why is this making me angry or feel judgmental or feel, explosive or whatever it is that's showing up for you? Because it was really interesting to see the feed. I think you've got a really interesting story. I mean, what changed in you now after going through this? What's changed inside of Jonathan?
I think it made me a different person for sure. That's one thing. I think I was, I had just turned 30. I turned 31 while inside detention, so that was another thing. And I think I just wasn't, and I can admit it now, I just wasn't mature enough. I wasn't taking responsibility for a lot of things. I think I'm one of those people that just is always worried about others, and I want to care for others rather than care for myself. I think I put others before me. So I think I was learned to be a little bit more selfish in that, and I was able to be more, maybe not selfish, not the right word, but I was able to care more for me while also helping others and caring for others. And I think I realized how strong I am. I realized how smart I am, because I've always been like, oh, I'm the funny one. I'm always, the funny dumb one in the group kind of thing. I've always kind of seen myself at that, but I think in there I saw how smart I am, how strong I am, and like I saw a different side of me, and I think everybody else did as well. And so that's kind of what I take away from that. I think I found a purpose in there, and yeah, I was able to bring that person out into the real world now.
Yeah, I really like that. And I do sense that you went through a transformative experience. In fact, you're thinking in the process of writing a book that
Mhm.
we're going to get to. And also inside detention, you started doing some journaling. And
Yeah.
I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I think people are also misinformed. Like they're just thinking, oh, you're inside detention. Then how did you write this? Or how did you get a pen or pencil? Or how did you even get a paper? It's like, I mean, we got commissary items, and you could just buy a notebook, you could buy a pencil, you could buy a pen. I mean, I was obviously detained, but we still had things, we could get razors if we wanted to shave. Like, we're still inside, we would still allowed to do a lot of things. It's not what people really think detention is like, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. But I decided to journal. Just I feel like that was where, because I also do come from like communication and media and all that background, so I felt like this could be a good way to in the future, use it as for a platform or something, and make some sort of project with whatever I end up writing. So every morning I would just wake up, and I like to shower in the morning, make some coffee, and then just sit down, listen to music, and then just write about my day, write about what happened the day before. If I hear anything suspicious, if I hear anything funny, if I hear any, or if I meet, you know, people, and who did I meet, what kind of stories I had, what kind of conversations I had, anything, I would just write. And so that was kind of like my thing for a few. I think I stopped writing eventually, like halfway through it, like every day. But then I still kept checking up here and there, and then I would still pull up my journal if anything happened. I would still write. But the first 2 months, I was just writing constantly every day, and I think it helped a lot, because now that I haven't gone through all the notes yet, because it's still like I'm processing everything. But I mean, I'm planning to use that towards the book, and I think that helps me a lot with I mean, also just my memory, because my memory sucks too. So just having that and just seeing some of the things that I wrote is like, oh, I remember this, or I remember I've been seeing some of the journal entries that I kept, and sometimes it just takes me right back to that, and I could see myself like writing that or being in that same state that I was in that day or what I was feeling that day. So it's very, I think it's a very cool experience of that in that aspect. And so I think it helped a lot, just journaling and writing.
Yeah, I think that's really wonderful. And what a great channel to turn your pain into purpose, help you process it fresh in the moment.
Mhm.
I did notice on the feed, the Reddit feed, going back to that, so many comments that about you having a pen and paper. And I
Yeah,
was like, oh, that's weird. Like, like it was like a point that people were interested in. And
yeah,
that makes me think in this moment, people just don't get what it's like in there. So what was a typical day like
yeah.
in detention?
I mean, so when they brought me in, they brought me with almost the same guys that I ended up. So they would switch us around in that day in Dallas, where I was in that holding cell. They would switch us around, but I stick with one main group, and then that group we all came together to the same detention center, and we all got placed in the same dorm. So that was also kind of, I think it worked towards my advantage because I was already familiar with them before. So when we all arrived to 140 other men, then the few of us that came together, then we were all kind of already building a friendship from the other cells. So I think that helped a lot. But it's you get a it's four bunk bed, it's two bunk beds with four beds, and there's cubicles. So the cubicles are separated by walls, so that kind of gives you a little bit of privacy. You get to have a table in there, and then they give you uniforms. So as soon as you get into the detention center, they give you uniforms, which is three of them, and then they kind of go over some of the rules. Every cubicle is assigned a tablet, so that way you can listen to music, you can watch movies, you can play games, you can call your family members, video call them. Everything costs money though, so it wasn't that you just get a tablet and you get to use it and and do whatever, because it costs money. So I was lucky enough to have my parents send money, and I would that's how I kind of listened to music, because that was a big thing outside in my real life, just listening to music. So so they would send money just so I could listen to music and just not be overthinking or just kind of distracting myself a little bit. And then
Your family must have been worried about you.
yeah, absolutely. I think when I first got arrested, I went with my mom to my appointment because I wasn't able to drive. So she went to my appointment, and I mean, I was scared for her. I thought that they were also gonna get her. I thought that they were gonna do something to her. So I couldn't even tell her until I was already taken out of the parking lot. They didn't even let me say anything to her, which I guess now that looking back, it's the best thing that could have happened.
Jonathan, what I'm actually, in a way, would it be a fair statement to say that it is kind of a business, this detention center?
Absolutely, and that's this is just the what we hear, what we all talk about, what we all could kind of come to conclusions to, that it's a business for sure. We've heard ridiculous numbers, which some might be true. I don't know, but we heard that they obviously make a lot of money for every day that we're there, plus for every person that's there. So I mean, I've heard over $2,000 per day per person. So it's like sometimes I think it also became like a mental game, because some people just want to leave. Some were like, I'm signing deportation and I'm ready to go. But then they still kept them there for like 20 days, 25 days, 30 days. Like it's still like, if you already signed your deportation, you're ready to go. Why are we staying here? And, I think that became a big thing. And that's why the conversations would start. It's like, well, are they making money? And one thing that surprised me is we get a commissary list, and we can order things from commissary, and just all the brands, I think all the brands that are attached to that, and all the brands that are helping just
Like what?
detention centers. I mean, I know, like, for example, I mean, just random brands that we use every day, like, for example, Doritos, or like Cheetos, or soda, Coca-Cola. Um, what else? I mean, even the chapsticks or any kind of like deodorant brands, like everything is just brands that are obviously partnered with them because they're supplying the stuff that we get in commissary. So I think that was we just realized that there's obviously numbers behind all of us, and I think we all became a dollar sign at that time.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And you're in a place where I have to imagine that you felt helpless.
Yeah, absolutely. You just don't know what's going to happen. For me, I realized that I was going to be there longer than a lot of people just because I was willing to fight my case. I wasn't just willing to give up. You know, a lot of people just decide to just sign deportation papers because they just can't be there in that place anymore. They just are not.
So then they sign them and they go back?
A lot of the times they are quick, but a lot of the times, like I said, they can take a while. But once you sign deportation, it's like, okay, well, at least I know that I'm gonna be getting out soon. But for me, I knew that I was gonna be fighting my case. I knew that I had to go to different court hearings. I knew that, I mean, I was prepared for all of that at the end of the day. Like I think I prepared myself for that. And in a way, I don't know if this sounds good or bad, but I mean, I started getting comfortable in there just because I knew that at least I was in the United States still. You know, I think whenever I got deported, I was feeling a little bit just I felt weird because I was like, I'd rather be in detention center at the moment because I don't want to go back to Mexico. It's a place I don't know, I'm not familiar with. So I think at this point, I'd rather be back in detention. I'd rather be detained rather than being outside. But as time went on, I realized that I think I got my freedom and that's all that mattered. And so it was, yeah, you feel hopeless. You don't know what to do in that case, especially for me, that I didn't know how long this would take, and I was prepared to go more than 4 months. I was prepared to go at least 6 to 8 months detained because I saw cases of people that were there that long or longer.
Wow, it's a long, long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long time, but you did end up going back to Mexico. So you were deported. You
hmm
live in Tijuana,
hmm
and what's that been like for you?
I mean, the thing that happened for me is like I didn't even finish my court case. My case was still pending. I know we had gone to one final court, and that's where they were going to give me a decision. They gave me the decision that they weren't going to go through with my asylum. So after that, I had to file an appeal, which they only accepted until I was already deported. So it doesn't make any sense. Due process, I don't think was followed there, and I think it was ignored big time just because I was still supposed to be fighting my case, yet they deported me without finishing it. So that's one of the trickiest part, and I think that's what made it hard to leave and be back in Mexico is that they just surprised me one day and they were like, you're gonna be leaving. You're done at this moment." And so I realized that something was going on and something was not right. And when they decided to get me out of there, they transferred me to another location, and at that point I'm not even allowed to speak to my family, my lawyer, nothing. So that was one of the hardest things also, is just not being able to contact anybody and telling them, hey, I think I'm getting deported, I think I'm going to be taken to Mexico. I'm not just getting transferred to another facility, I'm getting transferred to Mexico. And so that was really hard. And I mean,
What what was your dominant emotion during that moment when you're like, hey, I think I'm going to be put in Mexico? It's kind of interesting because I've made a choice to actually come here, and you were going there back without any choice.
Yeah, no, I was terrified. They had told me that I was gonna be transferring to another facility, but I thought, okay, maybe I'm going to another facility to fight my case because since we're already fighting an appeal, maybe this is the process. I don't know. They weren't telling me much. They didn't tell me that I was getting deported until I got there and they were to the other facility, and then they were like, yeah, no, you're going to Mexico. And at that point, I couldn't call my lawyer. I couldn't tell anybody. Like I had told my family members and my lawyer that I was being transferred, but I hadn't told them why because I also didn't know why I was being transferred. So if there was a fighting chance or a way to stop my deportation, there was no way I could have told my lawyer to help out in there because she wasn't allowed to talk to me. I wasn't allowed to talk to her. Like she couldn't do anything at that point. And so I was anxious. I was very, very stressed. And I think I was just panicking. Really, I was panicking. At the same time, I was still hopeful till the very last minute. I was like, maybe this is something else. I don't know. Like I was still hoping that something would change within the hours. I think I spent about 12 hours maybe in another detention center, maybe a little bit more. And so I was still hopeful that maybe there was something that was going to change.
But you were basically kept in the dark, like you didn't really know what was going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't told, and like I said, last thing I heard was that, or last thing that I had gone through was my last hearing. We had filed for an appeal. Everything was submitted correctly, whenever in time. Everything was good. All I had to do was just wait for them to approve it, and then I didn't get the approval until after I was already deported. So that also doesn't make any sense.
And then it's too late, right?
It's too late. I'm already in Mexico. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I have to admit, I'm trying to fill in like the visual picture. I'm trying to like, how do you get to Mexico? What does that process look like?
Okay, so I have some family members here. I mean, they're my mom's side of the family, which I've always been close to, but I've also hadn't seen some of them in like 10 years, maybe more. So it's not people that I'm very close with, but I am familiar with them. So that was kind of the good thing. Um, but it's also just not my family, my close family, like, my mom, my dad, my siblings. So it was very strange. But in that time that I told my sister that I was going to get transferred, she and my mom were able to talk to my family members here in Tijuana and kind of explain, that there is a chance that this could happen. And I think we also prepared beforehand. We talked about it. We discussed a little bit about the possibility of this happening, but we were still staying hopeful that that wasn't the case. So, I mean, my family was able to support me here. I'm staying with them in their apartment at the moment. Um, and that's really the only place I could go. It's not even where I was born. I was born in another state of Mexico, so it's not even, my hometown. And I remember a few things from growing up, but I only lived in Mexico for 8 years. So the rest of my time I spent in the U.S. So that's really the only home I know. Like this is just I'm supposed to call it home, but it just doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, it's just a bit weird thing. I mean, it's a shock to the system. It's such a huge change to move to another country.
Yeah.
Never mind being forced to move to another country.
Yeah.
Why do you think all of this happened to you?
I mean, in a way that now that I'm so, I mean, not even so much, but I am separated from the whole thing, and I can see, I can kind of reflect on the last 6-7 months of my life. Like I see that maybe this was supposed to happen. Maybe this was my route. This was meant to happen because, like I said, I was not a very mature person before. I think I really had to grow up, really. And I think I grew up so much in those 4 months that I was detained. I see another part of me, I think it also helped because I was sober those 4 months. I had struggled with alcohol and I was drinking, and so all that stuff. And I think it opened my eyes a lot. It's like, okay, well, I did this mistake. I made this mistake, and now this is my chance to correct it. And I think I took it as that instead of blaming myself, instead of blaming others. Which on the Reddit, people are like, "Do you blame your parents for bringing you to the U.S.? Are you mad at them? Do you hate them, or do you hate the government?" It's like, no, I'm not mad. I'm not bitter. I'm in a good place. I'm at peace. I know that things happen for a reason, and I think I grew a lot and I learned a lot from that.
How's your family feel about everything now that you're on one side of the border and they're on the other side?
I think the one that deals with or struggles with the most is my mom because I am very close to her, but I get to call her on FaceTime every day, multiple times a day. That was impossible back then in detention. So I think just being able to see them. My nephews are little, so I've been with them since they were born, both of them, and they're now 6 and 7. So I've been very close to them, and so now just being able to see them, talk to them through FaceTime, I think it makes things a little bit easier, but I don't think it will ever, feel the same. But I mean, I'm still hopeful that I can go back one day legally, of course, and I'm gonna be fighting my case. I'm still working with my lawyer on my case. Like, we're trying to figure out what the options are for me.
Oh, okay, that's great. I mean, that's I didn't know that. That's good to hear.
Mhm.
You do have a lot of fight in you, I have to
Yeah.
say. What do you think is some of the biggest misconception that people have about immigration detention based on your lived experience, Jonathan?
Well, I think the one of the funniest things that, I mean, I would talk about in there is, like, other people that say, we're using, that people are spending their tax money on us or on immigrants or all that. But it's like, when you think about it, all the money that, their taxpayer money, all was going into the detention centers, because, they have to fund our towels, they have to fund our uniforms, they have to fund our shoes, our sheets, our bed sheets. I mean, that's where the tax money is going. So people, for them to say is like, oh, you're taking from us, you're taking this. Well, you want people to be in detention, and that's where your money is going. It's to these detention centers. So um, realizing how much of the money of the government really gets spent on detention centers, that was just eye-opening for me. And just for people to say, I saw a lot on the Reddit too, it's like, why don't you just become legal in 20 years that you were there? It's like, well, there really isn't a path. Even if you're on DACA, you still have no pathway to citizenship unless it's like through a job, maybe, or through marriage. And a lot of people were asking that too. They were like, well, why don't you just get married? And I guess if I would say to that, it's like, okay, well, you want me to do things the right way, right? But if I just decide to get married for the legal status, that's also not doing it the right way. So you can't understand people sometimes. And um, I think that was one of the biggest things. Is like, why don't you? Why? Or I also saw, it's like, well, I think I mentioned saying, I'm proud of being to be Mexican. That's not one thing that never goes away. Even though I was living in America, and Mexico is not my home, I'm still very proud to be Mexican in my culture. So he was like, well, if you love it so much, then you should be happy that that happened. It's like, well, I could be proud of my roots and where I come from, but also not wanting that to be my home, because it doesn't feel like my home. So I think that's one of the biggest things as well.
Exactly. The United States was your home where you grew up from such a tender age of just
Yeah.
before 8 years old.
Yeah, I created a whole life out there. Like I said, I went to school. I, graduated high school. I got a bachelor's in film production. So I was able to do a lot of things and create a life for myself. It's really the only home I know. It was Texas and the United States.
Mhm. I think so. That I can really empathize with. I really get that, and it makes sense to me, Jonathan. I think you've shown so much honesty in sharing your story. It's such a deeply personal story, and I really believe that your story can change the world because it's a call for compassion and empathy and just understanding. Because I don't think your journey was easy,
Yeah.
and you showed such a tremendous resiliency. Before we close our conversation today, and I hope you've subscribed and smashed the like button and given Jonathan some love,
Yeah.
um, what kind of golden nuggets would you like to leave for listeners today? Something that they can take away and just be like, wow.
hmm I just say that, if, even when it was the darkest of darkest times, I still stayed very positive. And I remember somebody asking me inside, "It's like, why do you always have a smile on your face? Why do you always have this and that?" It's like, I mean, I can't change where I'm at. I mean, I'm trying to, obviously, but if there's nothing I can do, if it's something that I just can't change at the moment, then I'm not gonna be worrying too much about it. And I think that's what helped me help others too. It's like, I had to listen to the things that I say to people, so I can say that to myself too, because sometimes, obviously, there was days that I was feeling sad or lonely, but a lot of the times I just told people, it's like, do not give up. It's going to be difficult. When a lot of people came in, like new groups of people would come in, I would just tell them, like, just don't give up. It's not the end till it's truly the end. Like, you got to keep going and keep fighting. And so I think sometimes those were good words to live by, and sometimes I have to tell those to myself. But I think I just never lost hope, and I still don't lose hope that something will change and that I'm gonna be back with my family and they're gonna get reunited. So I know it's gonna be a long journey, and I know that it's gonna take a while. It's not gonna be easy, but I mean, I gotta remember that everything I went through is it's gonna be worth it at the end, and that something good will come out of it. No matter where I am or what side of the border I am, something good will come out of this.
Yeah, I'm kind of struck that the name of my podcast is called Healing Forward, and you're moving forward in your life, and you've got this mindset that really is very empowering and a story that can really truly change lives. I mean, behind every headline there's a human story, and I think your human story is very compelling. What's life like for you in Tijuana?
Well, actually, one of my friends, I made a really, really good friend in there that, we talked about. He also was on the same boat. We're 20 plus years in the US, no family in Mexico, no really life over here. So me and him kept in touch, and we planned, okay, whenever we get out, if it's in Texas or back in Mexico, then, we're going to get reunited and we're going to do something. And so now he's out. He's here in Tijuana. He's living around here and he's already working. We're trying to get an apartment together. We want to do our own podcast that talks about our experience. So I think that's one of the best things that it left me. It left me with really good friends from there and good people that I met. And with him, it's like I feel less lonely for sure, and that's one of the best things because I feel like he's the only one that understands what I went through, and he's gonna understand my ups and my downs. Just because we also lived 4 months together, the same room we shared. We would fight. We were, cook together. We did everything, and so I think we became like brothers in there. So now having him out here, life is a little bit better. It's getting more. It's just starting to feel more like this is gonna be my home, and I'm excited. I'm kind of excited just for the future, for us to live together and just get to know our country that, we're supposed to be calling home.
Oh, that's really nice. I'm very inspired by you. And it's a nice way to sort of close our conversation today. Listen, if this story resonated with you, help Jonathan
Thank you.
carry this forward. Help us carry forward this story by sharing this podcast, liking and commenting. Jonathan and myself will be responding to your comments and your questions. He's really good at Q&As, and I'm sure you have more questions that I haven't touched on about Jonathan's journey. Jonathan, we're wishing you all the best, and thank you for being here on Healing Forward with Barbara La Pointe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.